So let's say hypothetically that, there was a book list published, for summer reading because, as we record this, it's late May and everyone's looking for books to read. And let's say hypothetically, most of those books didn't exist, but it was still published by a major newspaper. Well, fun fact, that's not hypothetical. The May 18th issue of the Chicago Sun Times featured an article where it essentially recommended a number of fake books. So the author essentially had this generated by ChatGPT. Didn't do the research, just pumped it out real fast. And the Chicago Sun's Times is saying essentially that, hey, this didn't come from the newsroom. It didn't go through the editorial processes. We're trying to look at what happened, how it happened, why it happened. The writer is Marco. I'm going to butcher the last name, so my apologies. Bus Buscaglia, Buscaglia. Someone please tell me how to say that.
Scalaccia.
Yeah, I have no idea. Um, but essentially says that he uses AI for things, but typically fact checks. Obviously, did not fact check. And, he's quote from him to 404 Media is, "This time I did not, and I cannot believe I missed it because it's so obvious. No excuses. On me 100%, and I'm completely embarrassed." So that leads us to our question of who's responsible when someone uses AI content and gets it wrong? Is it the AI for getting it wrong? Is it the author for using AI, getting it wrong, not fact checking? Is it whatever media outlet that published them? And ultimately, doesn't matter who's responsible as long as someone is, or is, where do we go from there? Um, CJ, start us off.
Okay. Oh, those are good questions. I don't know. I went through like a little thought process here. My first thought was like, oh well, it's the magazine's fault for not putting, like checking and editing and making sure that it's good. But then I was like, oh, but it's the author's fault because they also didn't check it, and but then it was, oh, it's the author's fault because they also used AI. I think like in a this was a major newspaper, like Chicago Sun Times sounds like it's pretty up there. Um, it would be very funny if it's like a local newspaper.
It's big enough that it caught on and people
Yeah.
noticed.
Okay.
I will, as you run your thoughts, I will try to get you a general size.
With because it's with that many like moving parts, it's just like I think everybody's kind of shares the responsibility there for not catching that. But if you want to go like even further, I think it's this person's fault for asking the an AI to generate a list of recommended books. Because I hate to tell you guys this, but I mean, I think we all know it by now, but AI kind of just hallucinates information when it doesn't have anything to give you. So, you can press that little search button and have it search the web, but it's not going to give you results like 5 out of 10 times, it's going to give you nothing. That's not a
Um,
good track record.
the Chicago Suns is a daily nonprofit newspaper in Chicago, has the claim to be the oldest continuously published daily newspaper in the city,
Okay.
based on it being founded in 1844.
Okay.
So it is not
Wow.
exactly a new establishment. It is an established journalism or journalistic endeavor.
That's
Um,
that's worse. That's
Yeah,
way
so
that's
worse.
really bad.
circulation is 57,222 average print circulations. I
Yeah, like
don't actually, I should know what that means because I studied journalism, but I don't actually know. Um,
It sounds like they publish a lot,
yes, actually
and that's a problem.
that was from an article, the top 25 US newspaper circulations in 2022. So yes, they publish a lot.
yeah. I think like fluffing out an article with AI, it's not for like new like summer reading news. It's not. the worst thing in the world, right? I wonder if this author has way more articles going on, or other things, like being like, hey, here's a list of summer readings, and then being like, I am too tired right now. Can you just fluff this out for me?
Hmm.
And then going back and like editing it because it's like, oh, I have to write this other more important article. I can understand that, but I feel like if you just asked it to generate you a list of summer reading things to give you, you, you have to
Well,
check.
and according to an article by TheVerge.com, there is actually another uncredited article, which this list was originally uncredited, and it was uncovered that that this gentleman Marco was the author. There is another uncredited article titled "Summer Food Trends," which features similarly non-existent experts, including a Dr. Caroline First, food anthropologist at Cornell University, and Padma Lakshmi is also attributed in the piece for a quote she doesn't appear to have said. So there appears to be potentially a fair amount of AI usage going on there.
How can people be in the year of our Dochi 2025 not knowing that AI like just hallucinates information?
Year of our what?
Dochi. I love Dochi.
I
It's
don't know
it's
what that
that
is.
it's that fancy search
It's
button.
it's
Yeah.
like how can you be in Beyonce's internet doing this? But this year is Dochi,
Okay.
not
Yeah,
Beyonce.
yeah, it's one of those things, at least in my opinion, that like CJ said, it's a magic search button. People say, "Ah, the AI can solve all of my problems. It won't be wrong this time, or it won't happen to me." And thus they're like, "Magic search button solves all my problems," and end up with mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
say that I have seen people that are part of like industries that are using a lot AI. One of them is marketing, and the way that I have seen certain people talk about it is very concerning because they do legit in a conference just promoting AI usage for certain things instead of like researching it, they talk about AI like that. They're like, oh yeah, look, this AI can do this, and it's so easy to just look for it, and it just tells you the information. And that is like a class, like an actual talk that they are doing into promoting AI usage and like why they do it. So it's supposed to be of someone that has certain credentials and knows about the topic beforehand. I have seen it just said like, oh yeah, you just grab the whole, like, let's say for example you're writing newspaper articles or whatever, just write, put everything that you've ever written and then just ask it like, hey, my friend, can you please do this? And then it just does it for you. And that is the kind of ways that unfortunately AI is being taught in a lot of this like events or maybe a webinar, maybe like internet classes or whatever, like as a tool. Whenever people say like, oh yeah, AI is a tool and it's fine if you use it as a tool, the way that it's being used as a tool is problematic in itself because it's people that don't understand it fully are teaching to people that know even less. And this is when it becomes the snowball effect of like, how could ever hallucinate an information for a
it's
list?
it's almost like the exact inverse of Wikipedia, because with Wikipedia, when someone gets something wrong, like there's a billion people that are going to go on there and correct it. When AI gets something wrong,
Yeah.
it's very hard to correct an AI response. And I mean, call me old fashioned, but if I'm gonna get my information incorrect, I'm gonna get it from Wikipedia that's been fact checked by 50,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like it was one of those things where I think I recently had a professor say that they would rather us use Wikipedia as a jumping off point for papers than like ChatGPT
oh,
because
100%.
Oh yeah.
people on Wikipedia still, not everybody, but people still cite their sources. And so you can go into Wikipedia and then fact check those sources yourself. ChatGPT is not going to give me sources. I'm not going to ask it to give me an answer and then cite an MLA. That's just
Now,
not how that works.
I will say that the AI from Microsoft and I think
Copilot.
ChatGPT, yeah, Copilot, and then I think ChatGPT did actually integrate this. It does start giving sources, and
Hmm.
Google's Gemini also gives sources, But if you
Yeah.
look, those sources don't always line up with the answer that you get.
It's the magic search button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think the sparkles that have come with the AI imagery, there's a YouTube video I've been meaning to watch. I've seen like what these sparkles really represent. But I feel like with that, that gives the magic effect. And we all see AI and it's related to this glitter and sparkles and it must be magic. And we all kind of, that imagery ingrains in us that it's gonna have every answer
Yeah.
magically.
I think you talked about this in a previous podcast where it's just that people just put so much faith into different technologies that they just immediately accept, that answer. Like, oh yes, well, AI came up with it, machine came up with it, machine is clearly smarter than us. It's correct. And we've talked about this in a couple of podcasts, honestly, at this point, that it becomes almost like a crutch. And this is in a different way in that you just don't, okay, you get an answer, that's fine, but fact check your answer. Like if you got it, I mean, let's go back to, the playground days. Someone tells you something. I mean, the most prolific example of this, and um, I'm going to date myself. There's a show called Wonder Years, and there's a character on there named Paul, and everyone in my generation wholeheartedly believed that Paul grew up to be Marilyn Manson. That was just an accepted rumor of the millennial generation.
Oh my God.
And that's something like you could easily fact check and be like, no, this is completely unreal. And we couldn't. But now we could, and people are choosing not to because instead of, it, you tried to, if someone said that today, you're going to go fact check it. If Beatrice told me that this morning, I would have fact checked it in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I
But
would have picked
because,
up my phone and
yeah,
checked.
because AI tells people that, they are more willing to accept it because it is technology, not a person. But to circle back to kind of the main point here, so this is a news article, different than books like we've talked about before. False information is made in there. It's not a fictional story, so it's a bit more of a problem. Where does blame fall? Does the blame fall on the author, on the news article, or does it? I mean, obviously there is some fault in ChatGPT or potentially the prompt that, excuse me, was given to ChatGPT, but where does blame ultimately fall? And I mean, this is obviously a little bit outside of our realm, but
I feel like it's everyone's fault, honestly. And I do feel like ev everyone that was involved in that should like be held accountable for it. Like I'm talking about the journalists that decided to generate this and not even fact check it. Also the people that are supposed to edit that. Because like because you did journalism, like
mhm.
you just don't submit something random to a newspaper and they close their eyes and press enter. Like you have someone at least kind of review it.
So I think yes, I agree, but I think in the day and age of search engine optimization and content is king, people are pressured to push content as much as possible, as fast as possible. And I think that is actually part of what's to blame for this, because I'm sure this guy had, I think I read somewhere he also has contributed to a couple other newspapers. And like, I'm sure dude has a deadline for like 45 articles. And like,
Oh,
what are you
for
going to
sure.
do? And I mean, what kills me is I literally got an email the other day from Goodreads, like, here's 40 books for your summer reading list. Like, I guaranteed like BuzzFeed sends out the same list. Like,
Yeah.
you could have sourced it from like five different locations and been done in 30 minutes instead,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like you can go to your library.
Mhm.
I don't know how many times I could have gone to my librarians and been like, "Hey, do you have summer reads?" And I'm sure they've got 50 things out on the
Mhm.
shelves and in
Yeah.
displays. Like why do we even have to use the I mean, internet's great and all, but we could go to the people in your area. If you're serving Chicago specifically, then look what's popular in your area. You're gonna get more people interested in the books too. It just doesn't make sense to go to AI and be like, okay, give me a bunch of fake books. Well, they're not fake, but
Yeah.
didn't ask for
I
fake
think
books, but
60%, I think 60% of the books ended up being fake.
maybe
I
we
But
feel
should
like
use those as Reddit prompts.
hmm.
Let's write those books.
Honestly, a couple of them did sound pretty good. I will not
Yeah,
lie. The
that's
one
what
by
I
Andy
found.
Weir, I was like, oh, I'd read that. I
I'd read
enjoyed
that,
two of
yeah.
his three other books. Beatrice, you were gonna say something?
I feel like the whole go to the library thing is good in paper, but we run again with the issue that we were talking about a minute ago about like this person having like multiple deadlines and doing
Hmm.
like a lot of things. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that like it kind of what you were saying to like we are living in a very, very extremely fast-paced world right now in which we have said many times, and I don't like to repeat myself, but it's true. The only thing that is rewarded is like overproductivity to the point of exhaustion. I do under, and I think this actually even connects to some of the points that we have talked about in occasion about it. The reason why people feel drawn to use AI for certain things in the first place because they feel like they're falling behind. I
Hmm.
could see a journalist having like a 45 articles deadline and be like, how am I going to do this as a single person with only one brain? Like, this is the work of three people at least, five people. So, like, it is. When I say it's everyone's fault, is because I don't think there's like one specific person that the entirety of the blame should fall on. Because yeah, it is his fault. He should have at least fact checked, but also like were his deadlines reasonable at all? Were the amount of things that he had to do reasonable at all? Was it something that he felt like he had to either do that or copy it from someone else just because of the sheer amount of time that he was missing? Was the newspaper for not checking it? Was society for valuing over productivity? It's like a very complicated topic, and what worries me is that people are feeling trapped over this very big expectations that are surpassing the level of what a human being can do, and they start using AI in order to just reach it. And then the people that set those high expectations, when they see them met, they're like, okay, I'm gonna set them even higher. And they were already using AI and machines, or they were copying, and they were doing anything else even before AI started to reach this because it was above the level, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. Like,
Hmm.
when does it end? And it happens for authors too. It happens for writing. Like, authors feeling the need, which is another podcast that we're going to be talking about, the need to pump out book after book after book after book just for staying relevant. And some people, not even like setting aside like writer's block or creativity or inspiration. Let's say that you have like seven books completely outlined that you could just sit down and write and you would never get blocked in your life. Like a very small percentage of people have the time that it takes to take away from their lives. Most authors, writing is not their main jobs. They have a different job, be it related to writing or not, to actually sit down and produce. And a lot of the excuses, which I believe is not excuse, that people use as in like, this is why I use AI, is because of that um overproductivity, like constant uh exigence that we see nowadays with everyone, instead of like, and this is where transparency comes, like from like through us like an important thing, because I believe that if we start saying, hey, this is an inhuman kind of speed. Let's all slow down and try to see what we could actually achieve with our hands, our brains. Those expectations would start dwindling down, but it would take a major part of society to come into that agreement, which is absolutely impossible. So it's like a vicious
Yeah.
cycle.
It's
Mhm.
capitalism. The people in
Yeah,
charge want more for less, and the only way to provide that is to adopt things like AI, which are not necessarily going to produce quality results. They will produce significant amount of
quantity.
content. Yes,
Yeah.
that's actually a better way to put it. They will produce quantity, but not always quality. CJ, you've been sitting very patiently and very quietly, and I've learned that if I don't call on you, you will just continue to sit patiently and quietly.
Yes, because I don't know how to
It's gotta be
interject.
loud. It's gotta be loud.
I know,
Yeah.
but if I'm too loud, then it gets picked up over there. Anyway, I don't know. I was just thinking about like uh, the like expectations keep being met and everything, and I was going through my head about like what people did before AI, and I realized that like a lot of, I don't know how many, but like let's say an author of a thing, you know, five different newspapers or publishers all publish the same article, right?
Hmm.
With like very minor changes. And that gets put up in the news or whatever, right? Doesn't really get picked up by social media or anything that often, but it happens. And then they fire the people, they bring in new people, the same thing happens again. They all publish the same thing and whatever the cycle. So I wonder like if this is just so prominent now because like oh AI is such a hot topic and we're making content over the content that's being so I was just thinking about like if you want to get fake books just ask the person sitting next to you for a random list. Like it's the same thing. What did people
Yeah.
do before the internet? They talked to each other and they were like, "Hey, do you think like, if we threw salt into the sky it would turn yellow?" "Yeah, that sounds about right." And then they would just believe it. And then it's like now the internet came around and half of the people who believed it looked it up and the other half still went, maybe if I threw like salt into the sea it would turn yellow. You know what I mean? And they still wouldn't look it up. And now it's the same thing. Now instead of asking their friend or just talking back and forth, they're asking a chat bot which has the quote unquote the sum of human knowledge, but it's going to sift through like a tiny part of that one person, that one conversation 30 years ago where somebody said, "Yeah, throwing salt turns things yellow." It's going to repeat that. And it's the same thing. You just go ask somebody else for a random list of books.
Well, and I feel like another human might have the logic, right? Of like speaking with another human being, you're gonna get a different connection. So maybe I come to you, CJ, and I'm like, ah, I heard that you can throw salt in the sky and it makes it yellow. And you, as a human being who doesn't just regurgitate things, says, hold on, let me think about that. And even if you don't fact check it, you might go, hey, Rosetta, I don't think that's true. And that we could go test it. And if it doesn't work,
Exactly.
and so
Exactly.
another
It's just,
human has a
oh
different
man.
connection to another human than a computer that is doing exactly what is asked, which is often to confirm a bias.
Mhm.
I mean, it's the other thing I will point out is that this will blow over in probably 3 to 5 business days.
Yeah.
Way back in the day, this is a little more local to me. There was a writer for the Detroit Free Press named Mitch Albom who I don't remember exactly what it was, but essentially he had remember he like fabricated a couple of quotes from some basketball players. But essentially it was he essentially I don't think it was plagiarism. No, it would have been a direct fabrication essentially of some quotes about what these basketball players were going to do. And that was huge. That was like nationwide news. And then I think let me double check this real quick. There was a movie um called Shattered Glass, which stars Hayden Christensen, throwback Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, as a journalist who basically faked half of his articles. Like um, I think they were all fabricated, whatever. And like that was a big enough deal that got turned into a movie. This is going to be gone in 3 days.
Yeah.
Like it's because something else is going to happen. Someone else is going to do this. Like it's just going to just get completely swept under the rug. It's going to be gone.
And it's also so sad and messed up because it just means that we have gotten more and more used to mediocrity.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is really frustrating because what happens with social media is that all of the bad things get highlighted and they get this huge boost and then they all fade. But positive stuff just stays flat. And often it doesn't reach as many people as it should. And so we live in this world where all of the news is skewed towards negativity. And because that news is so easily accessible to pretty much anybody, we're all drowning in that negativity. And, it's sad that, yeah, what's going to blow over this is something else that's negative and bad, which
Yeah.
is so frustrating.
Well, I mean, let's be real here. If you see two stories, one is like 40 people trapped in collapsed building versus um, you know, puppy rescued. You're the majority of people are going to click on the disaster because disaster sells. That's why,
Yep.
like, when there's all those big weather events, like they always send like a guy down there to like stand in the middle of the storm and get rained on, and because that kind of stuff sells. Like that's what people want to watch. Um,
I feel bad for that one guy.
yeah. So I
The
mean,
meteorologist doesn't need to be doing
no,
that.
but yeah, I mean, so that's why the negative stuff like this gets populated up, and this no one will dwell on this because the next thing comes. But I mean, the the takeaway here is that this is probably going to continue to happen, and really the only people that can and probably should be blamed are the ones that we have no way to hold accountable. This gentleman Marco, his career might be over now. Uh, should he be held responsible? Maybe. Know who probably should be? Whoever's giving him these deadlines and all these articles, assuming that is what happened. But I mean, that is generally how internet and the algorithms work these days is you need to produce content after content after content. There needs to be a ton of content. And the only people that can change that are the people way at the top who are making all the money. And they quite frankly don't give a shit. So,
Well, and I think the people who make the AI, if you use ChatGPT, then ChatGPT, the people who make that should be, I don't remember the person's name right now, but those people should be responsible as well because they are making something that gives false information. And obviously they don't care because it's making them plenty of money. But I think not only should the, social media platform and, kind of how, and the people who make all the money in journalism, but the people who keep making these AIs that are false or, make stuff up instead of, like an AI
well,
that
I
could
mean,
admit that it didn't have anything,
that's a
I would be
slippery slope
oh,
because like
absolutely.
they aren't designed to make things up. They are designed to
No,
provide you answers, and potentially your prompt
yeah,
will cause them to generate fake
something.
answers. So I
I
mean,
just think it
it's
would be interesting if this is a big, what if, but if an AI could say, I don't have a proper answer for this,
oh, it
would be
will.
crazy. But,
The
but I
thing
feel like it's more likely to
It
make up something first.
I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever done a study on that, but like, I just out of curiosity one time asked it something about like New York Times bestsellers, and it's like, oh, that was way too complicated of a process for me to like answer. I'm like,
the
oh,
Yeah.
the
okay,
thing about these things, and you can see it, for example, in the AI that is used by Google when you do a Google search, the one that appears automatically. If there are no answers about stuff, it tells you that there are no answers about things. So I am with Tim on the whole idea of like it's the design is not that. I feel like if anything, it's the over reliability that people
hmm
are having on AI to the point that they are not thinking by themselves or
yeah,
not doing the stuff that they
Yeah.
would be supposed to be doing. Because also, if we are deflecting the guilt just for the people that create this, which could have like uses that could be good and they're just being misused constantly,
Yeah.
then the people that are misusing it have no consequences. And I don't
hmm
think that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I take back what I said then. I think it's just that
yeah. I mean,
the end of
I think there
yeah,
was a race to create the first AI that will not provide false answers, and
yeah.
AI is just too unpredictable to
Yeah.
get there. However, I have seen things that they expect in 3 to 5, or not 3 to 5, like 5 to 7 years, we'll have it's like I forget what the actual term is, but it's something that's like above human level intellect for AIs, and it's kind of terrifying. But
Yeah.
I mean, if it gets to the point where it's actually smarter than us and gives us correct answers, and doesn't take a ton of jobs, that's
And doesn't eat all the
yeah,
I'll eat all the trees and drink all my water. Yeah.
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 We'll see what happens, but I think we're gonna wrap it up. So on that note, publishers behaving badly. It's not you, it's them.